A very good afternoon to all the viewers from Global Hospitals, Parel, Mumbai. On this pleasant afternoon, myself, Dr. Pushkar Mehta, welcome you to this afternoon session. We are very pleased to have with us our senior consultant, Dr. Nilesh Satbhai, and a very interesting topic, and that is reconstructive microsurgery and its impact on quality of life. Dr. Sadbhai is here with us at Global Hospitals as senior consultant in plastic, hand, and reconstructive micro and transplant surgery. A very good afternoon to you, sir, and a very good afternoon to all our viewers. Plastic
Yeah, good
surgery
afternoon.
is to Indian culture, and the reason being that the father of plastic surgery, Sushruta, since 7th and 8th century BC, has been through India. So, the most important takeaway is that plastic surgery is a gift from India to the world. And we're very pleased to have Dr. Sadbhai discuss reconstructive microsurgery, which is an application of plastic surgery here with us today. My first question to Dr. Sadbhai is what is reconstructive microsurgery?
Yeah, good afternoon, Pushkar, and good afternoon, audience. Yes, so as Pushkar rightly said, plastic surgery is one of the oldest surgical specialties, and we should be proud that its origin comes back to India. So, Sushruta had performed several surgical procedures, and the best part was that he has described those in his book, which is called as the Sushruta Samhita, and he has described several surgical procedures, several instruments, and the best part is that even most of the instruments that we use today bear a very close resemblance to those instruments. So surgery was quite a developed science even in those times. And later on, of course, the progress made in the surgery was slow due to the invasions and the change in the routes. And then later on again, it went on to Europe, and then from there again it came back to us. So that is how surgery developed, and in those days, the surgeons performed surgeries in a very primitive setup, and it is still amazing to know the thought process that they had in those times. And that is how actually the reconstructive surgery developed, because there were a lot of deformities and a lot of disabilities which needed to be addressed, and that is how plastic surgery came into vogue. And later on, when microsurgery was developed, microsurgery involves connecting blood vessels or smaller blood vessels, which gives us a more versatile option of treatment. So that actually increased the scope of reconstructive surgery to a very large extent, and hence reconstruction was possible for all the major deformities or all major birth defects or cancer related defects, and that actually benefited all specialties because the treatment and the quality of care improved in all specialties.
So, sir, as times have evolved and technology has evolved along with the surgical techniques of approaching reconstructive surgery, we would like to know how exactly is reconstructive microsurgery carried out?
Yes. So, see, reconstructive surgery is one aspect in which a part of the body, if it is lost or if it is destroyed due to some disease, or if there is diseases like cancer which need to be excised to the complete extent to achieve cure, or there can be birth deformities in which the body part is not developed at all due to errors in the growth of the child, or sometimes in the burns or due to chemical injuries or due to industrial accidents, body parts are damaged irreparably or they are lost. So the purpose of reconstructive surgery or reconstructive microsurgery is to reconstruct or recreate all these body parts in the best possible manner. So our body is very unique. So it's like, and we come with the entire toolkit, or we come with all our spare parts. So all the potential spare parts that are needed for our body are present in the body itself. So when a part of the skin is lost, or when a part of the bone is lost, or when a organ or tissue is removed for some reason, some other tissue from our own body is taken, and it is structured and designed to the shape that is required, and that organ or body part which has been removed is recreated. And microvascular surgery actually helped us because as we know that all body parts are surviving on blood supply. So if the blood supply is intact, then the body organ survives or the body part survives. So microvascular surgery helps in restoring that blood circulation or recreating that blood circulation at a distant site. So a larger amount of tissue can be transferred from one part of the body to the other part of the body, and the blood supply to that part is ensured or restored using microvascular techniques. So this actually made the reconstructive procedures very versatile, and that also gave more daring or guts for the resective surgeon or the cancer surgeon to resect or remove the tumors without any hesitation, because whatever has been removed can be reliably and safely reconstructed. So that actually helped in development of cancer surgery as well, and also the deformities or congenital problems that children might have, they can be rehabilitated by reconstructing the structures appropriately.
I think it's a very important point that what has been excised can be reimplanted, and that provides a lot of confidence to cancer surgeries these days. So, how has recovery time over a period of years evolved? Over a past couple of decades, the post-operative recovery time, has it reduced? Any advancements that we have made towards it?
Yes. So, as I said, that the healing depends mainly on the blood circulation. So, if the blood circulation is good, then the healing will be fast. So, microvascular surgery actually helps because it restores the blood circulation, or the tissue that is transferred has its own blood supply. So, the healing is very fast actually. So, after any surgery, whether it is however big or small it is, the healing usually takes around 10 days to 2 weeks. So, microvascular surgery ensures that even though the transferred tissue or the transferred or the surgery is major, but even then within 10 days or 2 weeks, all the wounds have healed. And that actually helps in reducing the morbidity of the patient to a significant extent. It reduces the hospital stay, it reduces the overall treatment cost. So it also has proven to be extremely cost effective in the long run, because having a wound and expecting it to heal on its own takes a very long time. So the amount of dressings or amount of morbidity that the patient has to undergo is much more in the conservative methods. Instead, surgical methods actually can make the wounds heal faster, and they will eventually prove to be cost effective in the long run.
As compared to normal reconstruction, how is micro reconstruction different from normal reconstruction?
Yeah, I'll just share a presentation, so that will help you understand the and even the audience to understand the microvascular surgery better. Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as you rightly described, Shushruta was the father of surgery, and he was performing surgeries way back in 600 BC, right? So this was the book I was talking of, the Shushruta Samhita, which has a detailed description of all the illnesses as well as the instruments and several management of all procedures. And see, these are the instruments of Shushruta, which bear a very close resemblance to the instruments that we are using today.
Sir, I think you need to enable editing and start the slideshow.
Okay, the slides are not moving.
The slides are not moving.
Using the screen now?
Yeah, yeah, all well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so this was Shushruta, the father of surgery or the father of plastic surgery, performing his famous rhinoplasty. Shushruta has done a lot of work on rhinoplasty and facial surgeries. So, in fact, all the cosmetic surgeries that are being done today also find their root to 600 BC. So, this was the Sushruta Samhita, and these are the instruments of Shushruta that are very similar to the instruments that we use today. So Shushruta was really a great pioneer, and he inspired even the Western world with his work. So plastic surgery, in effect, is actually the contribution of India to the world. And this is the definition of plastic surgery. Actually, that it is a process of reconstructing and repairing parts of the body by transfer of tissue, either in the treatment of injury or for cosmetic reasons. Okay. So, yeah, as I said, the reconstruction is needed either for trauma or for congenital or birth defects or for cancer or infections or following burn injuries. And the basic thing to understand is, before we move on to understanding microsurgery, that the difference in a skin graft and a skin flap. So many times we hear that a wound requires a skin graft. So in that case, the bed of the wound is essentially healthy and it has its own blood supply or adequate blood supply. And then just a thin sliver of skin is excised and applied over the wound, which is called as the skin graft. So the skin graft, in effect, derives its blood supply from the wound bed. So in contrast, there are some situations where the wound bed is not healthy, or it is much more complex, or in which there are some other structures which are exposed, such as the bone is exposed, or the blood vessels are exposed, or the nerve is exposed, or tendons are exposed. So these are called as the critical structures or the critical defects, and these cannot be treated with the skin graft. So it was felt that we need a thicker tissue to cover these wounds, and hence the skin flap was discovered, and it was started to be used. And initially, because when the microvascular techniques were not available, the skin flaps that were available were the local flaps. So I mean the skin in the surrounding tissue was shifted to cover the wound. So these are some examples in the historical images that in our textbooks, which show the nasal reconstruction from a forehead flap. Or this is an Italian method of nasal reconstruction in which the skin from the medial arm is attached to the nose, and then the hand is immobilized in this complicated frame. And then the patient has to stay like this for almost 3 weeks, and then the flap is divided from the arm and the tissue ultimately gets transferred to the nose. So all these methods of reconstruction were available in those times, but then they were that much more difficult or time consuming, or it was more taxing for the patient to maintain the rigid position in order to achieve success. So all these difficulties were actually overcome with microvascular surgery, and that has made the reconstruction more reliable, and it has also made the lives of the patients easier in terms of recovery and the difficulty in morbidity. This is another classical example, or this is said to be one of the first patients who was benefited with reconstructive surgeries. He was a war victim who lost the skin around his eyes, and then the skin you see in the third photograph, the skin from the chest and the neck region is taken and transferred to his eyes, and ultimately his eyelids and the periorbital region was reconstructed. So this were typically tube pedicle flaps, which were transferred from one part of the body to the other in stages, and that took a really long time. So this is an example of a nose reconstruction with a tube pedicle flap. So these are interesting images, but yes, these techniques are safe and reliable, but yes, they are time consuming, and the morbidity of the patient is much more. So what happened with microsurgery is that we developed the skill of reattaching the blood vessels or restoring the blood circulation to an tissue, which helped us to transfer the tissue to from one part of the body to another with much ease. So Alexis Carrel is the pioneer of microsurgery, and he discovered the technique of end-to-end anastomosis of blood vessels. And he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1912. And he described this technique in 1902, after which actually microsurgery came into vogue. So microsurgery involves three M's, we call. was first is a microscope, second is the micro instruments, and third is the micro sutures. Now, because the blood vessels that are attached in microsurgery are very small or thin, the sutures or the threads that are needed to stitch those vessels are also thin. So in this third image, you see that the vertical strand is the human hair, and we have suture materials of different sizes. So roughly the 7-0 suture is said to be of a size which is comparable to the human hair. And in microsurgery, the sutures that we routinely use are usually 9-0 and 10-0. So these are the fine threads or the sutures that we typically use for repairing the nerves and the blood vessels. So this is just to understand what is attaching to blood vessels. So these are the blood vessels which are attached end to end, or it can be attached end to side, or when the nerves are cut or repaired or transferred, the nerve repair is done in this manner. So the decision making in microsurgery is dependent on what is the problem or what is the defect and what does it need. So ideally, we would always like to do the simplest possible surgery, which is the best for the patient. But yes, there are situations which are difficult, and as the difficulty of the wound increases, the complexity of the treatment increases. So you see that the distant tissue transfer or free tissue transfer is one of the highest rung of this reconstructive ladder. So this was initially considered as the last resort, actually. That when there is no other option, then you would think of microvascular reconstruction. But yes, with time, as the skill and the expertise of the surgeons has improved, and the understanding and acceptance of the patients also has grown, and the affordability of the patients has grown, definitely microsurgery is now in the forefront, and microsurgical options are now selected as primary treatment care, because they are that much more effective and reliable. So from the reconstructive ladder, we have now moved to the reconstructive elevator. So the elevator so you can stop at whatever level you want and then choose that treatment option for the patient. So this is the change that has happened due to microsurgery. And going ahead, I will further describe how this elevator also has changed into a recent advancement. So, for the guidance of what is the scope of microsurgery, we can go through if there is a head and neck cancer, or the patient undergoes resection of a segment of his jaw or his tongue or his cheek. So that resected segment can be reconstructed. Suppose this patient had a tumor of the jaw, so this portion of the jaw was removed, and then this was reconstructed with the bone of which is the free fibula flap. So fibula is the bone in the leg. So that bone is taken along with its blood vessels, and these blood vessels are then connected to the blood vessels in the neck to restore the blood circulation of the bone. And then the jaw is created by fixing a plate on top of it. So the beauty of this surgery is that you're replacing like tissue with like tissue. So the bone is replaced, the skin and the soft tissue is replaced, and later on you can have permanent dental implants on these bones. So the rehabilitation is complete, and the patient can have a normal set of teeth in spite of losing his original jaw. So that is possible due to the microsurgery. So breast cancer reconstruction is one of the is a major part of microsurgery, where a female, if she loses her breast for due to cancer, tissue in the lower abdomen can be taken in the form of a flap, and this tissue is given the shape of the breast, and the blood vessels of this piece of skin are connected to the blood vessels in the chest to recreate the breast. So this has made a really great impact on the quality of life of the patients, because losing a breast is a very sensitive matter, and it has a great psychological impact on the psyche of the female. And surgeries like this really help them to restore their body image. Another application of microsurgery is in nerve repair and nerve grafting. Suppose there's a nerve tumor, or there's an injury or a cut in the nerve, and a segment of the nerve is lost, then we can replace that segment with nerve grafts, which could be taken from the leg. So this image shows the same, that a nerve graft is taken from the leg. It is cut into pieces to make short cables, and these cables are then fixed into the nerve defect to reconstruct the nerve, because nerve is very important. All the movements happening in all the joints are due to the muscle contractions, and the muscles contract because they receive nerve supply. So restoring or repairing the nerves is extremely important to achieve a functional movement across a joint. So this is another application of microsurgery. Similarly, brachial plexus injuries is one of the major applications of microsurgery. So in this, what the brachial plexus is a set of nerves that arise from the neck. So if somebody meets with an accident or he falls down from a tree or on a hyperextended neck, the nerves in the neck are damaged, and the entire hand gets paralyzed. So in those patients, nerve surgery or nerve reconstruction plays a very crucial role. And in some situations, when the nerve surgery is not sufficient, or the patient presents too late, then this technique of free muscle transfer helps in restoring the function of the hand. So this is another beautiful application of microsurgery. So as I said, from the reconstructive ladder to the elevator, and now we have reached to a state that we call as the reconstruction supermarket. So just as in the supermarket, all the things are laid across and displayed, and then you pick and choose whatever you want. So depending on whatever tissues you want, whether you want a bone or you want a skin or you want the muscle, and depending on the value, cost, all the factors, you decide what is needed, and you can take those tissues and perform your reconstruction. So the microvascular skill has actually enabled the surgeon to expand his armamentarium to a greater extent. Hello. Yeah, Pushkar. Pushkar, can you hear me?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes, Pushkar.
I'm awaiting the presentation, sir.
Yes. So I just described the techniques and the available options that we have in microsurgery, and I'll now go through some case scenarios actually, where we have done the
So we
actual
are unable.
reconstruction. Hello.
We
Yes, Pushkar. So I will now share the clinical cases where we have done microvascular reconstructions in different situations. Yes. Are you seeing my screen now, Pushkar? Yes, so this is the first case where a female met with an accident and she had a crush injury of her foot, and then that foot was reconstructed, or the defect on the foot was reconstructed. So this picture shows her immediately after the accident, in which there was she fell down from the auto rickshaw, and the weight of the rickshaw actually came on her feet, and this resulted in a necrosis of the skin over the foot. And once this dead skin was removed, the underlying structures such as the tendon was exposed, and this required a flap cover because a skin graft alone would not do in this situation. So what was done is that a muscle was taken from the thigh along with its blood vessels. So this muscle was then fixed on the foot, and the blood vessels were connected to the blood vessels in the leg. And this was later covered with a skin graft. And then in 2 months' time, everything had healed, and she was back to her normal, regular activities. And the foot now had a stable, thick cover of tissue, which was as good as her normal skin. So she was able to recover back to her job and her regular activities. So another example is now a case of a mangled thumb. So this boy actually was going on his bike, and then he skid and fell down, and this resulted in a very severe injury to his hand. You see, the thumb is totally flail, and there is a loss of skin over the thumb, with the loss of bones, and plus the wound is grossly contaminated. So the most important thing in this situation is to do a proper wound debridement and cleaning the wound, so that all the infected material and all the dirt is taken off and the wound is clean, so that the chances of infections are less. So he had a fracture of the of the bones in the thumb, the metacarpal and the phalanx, and there was a skin loss over the dorsum of the thumb. So we needed to reconstruct the bone as well as the skin. So what was done is that a piece of skin was taken from the leg. So this is a flap which is called as a medial sural artery flap, and it was taken along with its blood vessels. So this is the flap with the blood vessels. And then a piece of bone was taken from his hip. So from that, the bone was fixed here to the in the gap, and this was fixed with a steel wire or a K wire that we call. So the bone was replaced and it was stabilized, and then this was covered with the flap that we took from the calf, and the flap was connected to the blood vessels in the forearm. So the thumb was reconstructed in this manner, and after it healed or after the bone united, the wire or the pin was taken off. He was on some physiotherapy, following which he was able to use his thumb properly. So this is it at the end of 2 weeks that the wounds are healing well. So there's one more situation in which the thumb had got completely amputated. So this was actually a carpenter who met with an accidental injury at his workplace. So he was cutting with a saw, and accidentally the saw
Sir, could
tripped.
you
And
add your slideshow?
hello, are you not seeing the slideshow?
No, sir.
Till where did you see? Uh, yeah, Pushkar, till where did you see? You saw the first case?
So, no, sir. Clinical cases is not able to see, sir.
Okay, fine. So I'll just
Uh,
go through it
uh,
again. Are you seeing now?
yeah. Can you change the slide?
Yeah.
We'll just check if it is. Switch
Are you
to full
seeing?
screen on the slide, sir.
Yes, it is on full screen. Are you seeing it now?
No, sir. Uh, at the right bottom corner, there's an option to go to full screen.
Yeah, I am on full screen. Is it seen now?
Yeah, good to go, sir. Good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was a road traffic accident in which that a female fell down from the auto rickshaw, and the weight of the auto rickshaw came on her feet. Okay, so this resulted in necrosis of the skin over the foot, which after debridement or cleaning, it resulted in a defect of this type in which the tendon is exposed. Okay, so a free gracilis flap was done. So gracilis muscle is a muscle in the thigh. So this muscle was taken along with the blood vessels, and then the muscle was used to cover the wound, and the blood vessels were attached to the vessels in the leg, and then this was later covered with a skin graft. So after 2 months, you see that the graft is now well settled, and the she was back to her work and normal activities. And the flap serves as a thick tissue of almost normal strength, as like a normal skin. So her foot could be restored. So we move on to the second case. This is a mangled thumb. So in which a boy was met with an accident when he fell down from his bike, and it resulted in an defect on the dorsum of his thumb. So you see the defect on the dorsum of his thumb, along with loss of bone and soft tissue, and the wound is grossly contaminated with dirt. So the first and most important thing in this situation is to clean the wound adequately. So after cleaning and debriding the wound, uh, that reduces the chances of infection to a significant extent, and the healing can progress at a normal speed. So the defect was assessed, and then we had to replace some bone in this portion and replace the skin that was lost on the dorsum of the thumb. So what we did is we took a piece of skin from the calf along with its blood vessels. So this is the medial sural artery perforator flap. So it is taken along with its blood vessels, and we took a piece of bone from the hip region, and we fixed it in the gap. So this is the bone graft which has been fixed with a wire or a K wire. Okay, and then this is covered with the flap. So this flap, the blood vessels are now connected to the blood vessels in the distal forearm, and once the flap survives and heals, all the wounds heal and the thumb is now stable. So after the bone is united, we remove the K wire, and then the physiotherapy started, and that is how his thumb could be saved, because it was a right hand and which is a dominant hand. So this was another case of an amputation. So this person was a carpenter who lost his thumb in an accidental saw injury. So the thumb was totally disconnected, but luckily he came to us in very good time, and within 2 to 3 hours we could actually take him to the operation theater, and the thumb was replaced and replanted, and all the structures were repaired. So the bone was repaired, the tendon, nerve, blood vessels, everything is repaired, and the thumb could be saved. So this is it at the end of 3 months, where the thumb is healed well, except barring a mild amount of swelling. And at the end of 6 months, he almost has normal hands with the thumb replaced and restored. So this again could be possible because of microsurgical techniques. So in a case of a hand amputation, where the entire hand of this person actually was lost in an accident in the bakery. So he was working on a bread slicing machine in which accidentally his hand got sliced off. So again, it was lucky that he could reach the hospital in time, where all these structures could be repaired and rejoined, and so his hand could be salvaged. So he's now back to his regular activities. Again, this was again a dominant hand, and hence it was extremely crucial for him to have his hand back. This is the follow-up at 6 months. He is now able to use the hand to a normal extent, and he's back to his life. So this was one more example of an brachial plexus injury. As I said, these are the nerves coming from the neck which control the movements of the entire upper limb. So this boy actually fell from his bike and sustained an injury on the neck. Now, he's not able to move his right shoulder and his right elbow. His hand is normal, but his shoulder and elbow are completely paralyzed. So in nerve transfers, we transfer some normal nerves to the paralyzed nerves in order to achieve the function that has been lost. So a nerve transfer is done at the level of the neck, in which a normal nerve is transferred to the paralyzed nerve. Similarly, a nerve transfer is done at the level of the arm. to restore the function of the elbow. So you see the nerves being transferred here to the target nerves in the arm. And now after 4 months, you see that this is the pre-op status. He is now able to move his shoulder slightly and also able to rotate his shoulder out externally. So eventually this function keeps on improving with exercise, physiotherapy and regular use, and his limb is restored. So he was not able to flex his elbow initially. He is now able to flex his elbow. So that is the result of a microsurgical repair of the nerves of the brachial plexus. So in terms of future, I will mention a few things that are coming up or that are currently picking up in India as well as abroad. One is the scope of microsurgery in diabetic foot reconstruction, because a lot of diabetics develop wounds over their feet, and ultimately, if they are not appropriately or adequately treated, they end up losing their toes or limbs. So microsurgery has a very major role in salvaging these feet. So it is very important for the patients to know about this and to approach the appropriate plastic surgeon or the microsurgeon in time so that their feet can be salvaged. Similarly, we hear of facial palsy, so in which a part of the face or the half of the face gets paralyzed for some reason. So initially, results in a very severe psychological impact on the patient, because it leads to a cosmetic deformity of the face. The patient is not able to smile with symmetry. So smile reconstruction was done by taking a piece of gracilis muscle again from the thigh, which can be placed in the face, and the blood vessels and the nerves are then connected to the nerves in the face. And then once the muscle starts functioning, the smile of the patient can be restored to some extent, saving them of the social embarrassment. This is another important situation where microsurgery is picking up very rapidly. Lymphedema or elephantiasis, as we popularly know, results in very severe disfiguring deformities of the lower extremities or the upper extremities sometimes. So microsurgery has now enabled us to do lymphovenous anastomosis, or to transfer lymph nodes from one part of the body to another, and that can actually help in resolving the severity of the lymphedema, and that definitely has a significant impact on the quality of life of these patients. Similarly, we hear of organ transplants, just as the solid organ transplants are now very common, like liver, kidney, heart, lung. Similarly, hand transplants are now very well known, and we know the benefits of doing hand transplants. And we also did our first hand transplants 3 months back. It was a bilateral upper limb transplant, and yes, when the patient is now recovering back and gaining function of her transplanted hands. So transplant is definitely future frontier, and it is done either at the forearm level, or depending on the level of the amputation, it can be a supracondylar transplant. Similarly, face transplants is a major microsurgical advance that has an impact on the quality of life. And several patients lose their faces due to injuries or infections or gunshot injuries, and then they live a miserable life. And those have a hope with these kind of procedures where a transplant can restore their earlier form. So microsurgery actually has a huge impact on the quality of life, and being full or being complete in physical form and having a normal function is a blessing which we often overlook. And microsurgery aims to restore these deformities and functions to the maximum possible extent, because the quality of life is sometimes more important than life itself.
I think it's a very important takeaway message that the quality of life at times becomes more important than the life itself, and especially for patients who have been suffering or have undergone or underwent such injuries as well as surgeries. We are very thankful to you, Dr. Nilesh Sarbai, and thankful to all the audience for their patient listening. Thank you on behalf of Global Hospitals for enlightening us on this topic of reconstructive microsurgery and its impact on quality of life. Also, the patient stories and case studies that you have shared with us today were really helpful to our audience and as well as to us to understand exactly how reconstructive surgery works. Very thankful on behalf of Global Hospitals to all of you. I request all the viewers that they can keep commenting their questions. We will ensure that the questions are answered from Dr. Sadbhai himself. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Vipul.